Welcome to Music Ed Tech Talk, a podcast exploring the topics of music, education, technology, and the intersections between them, with a special focus on the productive and creative process. I'm your host, Robby Burns. With me today is my past co-host on the Class Nerd podcast and regular guest on this show, Craig McClellan. So, how's it going?
It's good. I'm so happy that you're having me back.
This is fun for me. So I had some late plans, and I want to set this up right so that I don't leave you with the impression that you're like my scrappy, like I can't get the actual guest I want, so I call Craig.
I'll be your backup.
Well, no, there's something to be said for, when you're in a pinch, who do you depend on? You depend on your family, and you are my podcasting family. So when I knew I needed another episode by this month, I was like, well, it's got to be Craig.
Well, there's been a lot that has happened since we last talked. So I think we last talked after Apple had WWDC.
Yep.
So there have been 3 Apple events since you and I last spoke.
Yeah, that's a lot. And, as being that we are so passionate about talking about and covering that stuff, I feel like we should probably at least address, some of these events resulted in products that, can be purchased by people such as us, and have these Apple events triggered any recent or holiday related purchases in your household?
Only one of the 3 events has caused a purchase for me, but it caused multiple purchases. I finally replaced my 3-year-old iPhone 10, which was on its last leg, both in battery and I had cracked the screen. But I cracked it in May. I'm holding out for a new iPhone in the fall. So I now have iPhone 12 Pro Max in gold. And yes. I love it. Robby, you talked me. I was debating, do I want to go with the biggest phone? Because if I'm going to keep it another 3 years, I want the best camera. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of my kids' lives in 3 years that I want to have good pictures. So I was like, I'll take the best camera, but I don't know if I'm going to like the size. You're like, do it, Craig. And so I was like, if I don't like the size, then I will just return it and get a 12 Pro, a regular. But from the second I opened it up and turned it on, I have been in love with it. So that's been the big one. And then I think we're going to talk a little bit more about smart speakers a little later, but I have a HomePod.
Yeah. It is a capital T topic on the list for today.
Yeah. So what about you? How did Apple take your money?
A couple different ways. Well, I'm on the upgrade program, so I just continue to every year. I think the phones just keep getting so much better. The 11 Pro Max, which I just upgraded from, was the first one for a couple of years now. I felt like I don't really need to upgrade it each year. I can, because the upgrade program gets you, because you just have this cost built into your budget, and it's not really a thing to just let it roll over to the next year. And I know people on the upgrade program who then just keep the phone for 2 years and pay it off, but I'm like, well, if I'm gonna just keep paying this, I might as well get a new phone. So it was the 11 Pro, when I let go of it to get the 12 Pro Max, I was just like, man, this phone really, it doesn't feel old at all. It feels pretty much the same as the first couple of months of use. Not brand new out of the box fast, but I don't know. It just wasn't showing, it's other than maybe the battery, it wasn't showing really any age. So I don't know. I keep telling myself one of these years, I'm not going to upgrade year over year, but that was not this year. No, they got me. I kept the big phone. I like the new design a lot with the squared off edges. Very pretty.
Which color did you get?
I did blue.
Nice.
Yeah. And then there were some Apple Watch purchases in our household.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't tell you that. Yeah,
no,
we got them. We got those. So speaking of year-over-year things, I have an Apple Watch problem too, because I just keep selling my old Apple Watches on Facebook Marketplace and then upgrading every year. It's a problem for me.
What was the draw of the 6 over? Because I assume then that you were coming from the 5.
Yeah, this was it was, you have to understand there's really was no reason to upgrade. The 5 was feeling pretty good. The thing you got to understand about my brain is like the health tracking has gotten out of control. Like if I can track a thing, I'll go to extreme limits to track it. And if I can sell the previous watch and like get out of it, like only spending like $100+, I'm like, I'm gonna just get that health tracker. I really want to know and you know, of course my health is fine. Like you should see the charts from the blood oxygen reader. It's like you're pretty much, my blood oxygen level is perfect, but it is interesting to see when it's like lower. Like the times, you know, like the things that you do, like sometimes when I sleep it's lower, which I hear could be like a sleep apnea thing. When I see the acupuncturist, it goes the lowest. Like that's the only time it goes lower than, not lower than normal, just low enough that if my blood oxygen level was there all the time, I would call a doctor. I'm talking like 90%.
Yeah.
Is this TMI?
No.
Is this TMI on that?
It's up to you. You know, in light of COVID, I can totally see wanting that blood oxygen sensor. Now, when you get an Apple Watch, do you get aluminum finishes? What do you pick with an Apple?
That's part of the arrangement, is like Mary has caught on. I mean, it's not like she didn't know what I was doing. It was just like, now it's a thing that we joke about in the house, where it's like, oh, you're going to upgrade. Okay, you're upgrading your Apple Watch. You really don't need to do that, but all right. So, you know, we do, we kind of had to work through this a couple years back. Her deal with me is pretty much like, if you're going to do that, you can't get the steel one. That's the deal. And I'm like, that's a very, very, very fair deal.
Yeah.
Very fair deal.
So I have a steel 5. And so for me, it's like, it's a no-brainer to keep it going as long as I can, because I paid enough for it. But I just like steel better. I just do. My first original Apple Watch, the Series 0, I guess now we call it in retrospect, was stainless steel. And then when I went to the 3, I went aluminum. I got the Darth Vader, just the black aluminum one. And I never liked it as. And so when I went to the 5, I had to stay. I'm going to keep it for a while.
Have they improved? Because I know I had the original one in steel, the 0 as well. And at the time, people would write about the haptic engine not quite being as prominent in that model because of the material.
It's not quite as prominent, but I think it's better than the original Apple Watch was. So it's fine. I don't miss notifications.
Oh, okay. That's good. Yeah, I've been aluminum ever since whatever one was the first one I got after the 0. And I just, that's the only really practical reason I've thought of to not go, because I mean the steel one looks so much better. I really notice it when we're at a wedding or something, you know, and I'm wearing a suit. I just look at the aluminum and I think, okay, you know, it would certainly like sell itself as a fashion item if it were steel, but it's
well, and you know what's funny though, like, you know, I got this one at Christmas last year. I asked my whole family, give me Apple gift cards, and got it.
Nice.
And it was great, but it was before COVID. And and we haven't even talked about this, but I have moved. I don't live in Nashville anymore. We have moved down to Alabama to be closer to family, and I'm just permanently going to work from home now, which my office isn't even going back in till next August anyway. So
they decided that already.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. It was a giant, you know, I don't want to say cube farm, but because that makes it sound like not a great environment. It was a great place to work. I loved it, but it was a bunch of cubicles.
Yeah.
And then, so just to be safe with everybody, all in the giant, they're doing that. So we have moved, and I now have my own office in a bigger house, close to family. It's awesome. But now I'm like, I could have gone aluminum because I don't see anybody ever in, you know, and probably for the life of this watch, I'm really not going to see a lot of people or go to a fancy event where I care what my watch looks like. So here we are.
Yeah, I had that same thought too, because the idea of this being a fashion thing, like really, like it's the steel one is definitely like a, hey, I'm wearing this out, and it's ironic because I don't think about fashion really in that much level of detail, other than my watch and related watch bands, which my wife also gives me a hard time for.
Same.
She's just like, you're asking me like if your watch band matches this morning, and you haven't bought new socks in like 7 years. I don't understand this at all. You gotta understand. This is just the way that it works. I will say one small comment about Darth Vader aluminum. I know it's like the cooler of the two aluminum colors, but I actually think that the lighter color matches way more stuff.
Yeah,
it's like to me more like the aluminum, like spiritual cousin or whatever of the steel model. Like it just it blend. Like I don't feel like I could put every watch band I own with the dark. Like the, what is it called? Is space gray then?
I think it was space gray. Yeah. Oh, and that's 100%. When I got a bunch of different watch bands with my original stainless steel, and then when I went black, I used a black sport loop and a black sport band. One's cloth and one's rubber. I don't remember which one's, and now that I'm back to stainless steel, I busted out a bunch of different colors and finishes again. I enjoyed that.
Well, you mentioned your home and moving. Of all the, and it's funny, even in the last episode, there's like 10 minutes of smart home talk. I'm always like wanting to talk about this stuff, and it's like my podcast. I talk about whatever I feel like, but I also feel, like that to speak to my audience, like the music people will certainly appreciate that, there's a part of the smart home that's maybe not received the attention on this show that I want to, which is speakers. Mm-hmm. Everyone, music teachers, musicians, all people alike are spending more time at home. Smart stuff in the home can really enhance that life. We're listening to a lot more music, just, in an ambient sort of way, like it's just on in the background. I'm curious, like, I mean, we can go in on the speaker thing, but like, what kinds of smart home accessories are you experimenting with in this new place?
So, I would love to, because you are, like, out of everybody that I know, the person that has the most smart home. So basically, I'll kind of tell you where we're at, and I'd be interested to know what you're like. Craig, here's what the next step. Here's where you could go next.
Sure.
So we have in the kitchen, and our whole downstairs is one wide open space, except for a bathroom, which you don't want wide open, and my office. Everything else, kitchen, living room, dining room, entryway, all one giant room. And so in the kitchen, we've got a regular HomePod. It was the one that I got when the HomePod first came out, and we've always had in our kitchen. In my office, I have another regular HomePod that was a COVID purchase back in the spring when I was working from my master bedroom in our old house and just miserable and trying to make things better. Yep. And then we just got a HomePod Mini, which is in our kids' playroom, and I think I will probably pick up at least one more of those for our master. So that's what we've got in terms of speakers, and then we've just got some Hue bulbs. I've got a couple in lamps in the living room. In our master bedroom, my wife's lamp has one, and then I don't even remember what it's called. I've had it for a couple years now, but it's like a lamp that's made by Philips Hue, and it's like a little, like, it looks like a half sphere.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
That's been my like nightstand lamp for a couple years now. And then
it's just kind of like props up and sort of faces at a 90-degree angle up. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, I can find it and get you the link for show notes. It genuinely, like, the flat part, if you took a sphere and cut it in half, like ran it through the middle, not up and down, but side to side, and then took that top half off and threw it away, the bottom half is what sits on my...
So I think of nightstand lights as typically having a shade over them to sort of like keep, like, do you find that it's a really like bright, like too bright for the bedside, or obviously not if you're using it?
No, it's not. And then, of course it can be dimmed too. So it has never, and it's a hue light that can change color. You can get it to a warmer tint. It's not just a blazing white. It's got the more natural, whatever term they call it. So, and then we've got a hue light in the kids' playroom as well. And at our old house, we had one of those Lutron Caseta light switches in the kitchen. And that was great, but I didn't want to deal with trying to swap. I had an electrician put that in and didn't want to deal with swapping it out for a regular light switch. We sold that house. I just left it. We do not have that. I don't know that because I'm not handy enough for that kind of thing. Not.
It's tricky, yeah. So we had someone who did some work for us at the old place before we moved, and then he did some work for us at the new place when we moved in. And that was like, he just like threw that in for pretty cheap, installing a couple of those things. I watched him do it. I think you could do it because you're like, I think honestly I could do it. There's that like electrical fear in the back of my mind where it's like, you know, like, am I gonna do something that I'll regret later? But he didn't even shut off any of the switches in the house. You know, any of the what's the word I'm looking for here? You know, he didn't shut off the fuse before opening any of the plates, because I think those Lutron ones are somehow don't have to be. And the fact that I'm talking about it, even this like with this lack of knowledge, is indication that I probably shouldn't go in. But I really I watched him do a couple of them. It looked so easy.
Well, and I will say that like I can change out like a light fixture or something like that. I'm having deja vu. I'm wondering if we've talked about this on the either way. But it was the house that we were in was older than I am, and it was just the wiring was a mess. This is a new house, so it might. But I actually tried to install it before and broke everything in our kitchen basically, and we had to have come. So I think I could do it here, but definitely not in that order.
Are you thinking of going with just individual light bulbs as a possible alternate solution?
I don't know. I feel like a lot. I mean, we've got a lot of things covered. Oh, I also, in this office, I have a Wemo plug that controls one of the lamps in here. So in most of our rooms, we have lamps that can be controlled. We just don't do the overhead lights. And It's kind of like, you know, when you step in the kids' playroom, you can flip the light switch as you walk in. You know, it's not, can't control it like if you forget to do it and you can see from your bedroom without lights on. But, you know, in general, we've got a lot of light.
Yeah, the issue most people talk about, and what was the case for us, is like with the bulbs, you know, the light fixture on the wall has to be in the on position or else they disconnect from HomeKit. And we have this issue even now because we kept, you know, we threw all those bulbs in a bag and brought them with us. So even though we've got some switches, we, you know, our piano room, we call it, that room has the lamp, little individual hue bulbs. And then the nursery has one of those bulbs in it. And, you know, I mean, even just it's like a daily thing. It's a lesser problem than it used to be, but it's like, you know, Mary will turn off the nursery light from the switch, and then I'll come in there to get him in the morning, and, you know, I'm like trying to tell my watch to turn it on, and I'm like tripping over, you know, stuffed animals and stuff. And, you know, like it won't work because it's disconnected from HomeKit. So I don't know. The light switches, that's kind of the main problem that they solve.
Right. And yeah, I don't think I would put few lights in like that exactly.
Yeah, so they're sort of in like freestanding lamps, things that you would otherwise turn on and off by actually reaching up to the lamp and like twisting a little knob.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess let me just kind of tie this all together. It's 2 days after Thanksgiving. There's probably a lot of sales on this stuff happening right now. So I mean, I guess it's worth, you know, I'm glad we're mentioning some of these by model and brand. I also should say that it's okay if we've talked about this before, because the HomeKit stuff, again, I'm rationalizing here. I can talk about whatever I want on my show, but I feel like we would probably, if we were still doing the Class Nerd together, we probably would have done, you know, you're a working at home, here's how you make your home awesome episode by now.
Right.
I feel like I don't know. This, you know, feels like maybe we could just get out all that pent up home automation energy. But no, you're right. And, that the Philips Hue are good, and the Lutron. Those, I would say that to anyone looking at getting smart stuff, that lights are definitely the category that changes your lifestyle the most, and that Philips Hue and Lutron are by far the most reliable of all of my home devices.
So here's another reason why I have not gone deeper into this. You know, our home is new construction, and so everything in it is new. So it's like, well, I could get a smart garage door opener, but they just put in a brand new garage door opener. It feels like a waste to swap that out. And I've heard that some of the like add-on components that make garage doors compatible fail after a couple. They're not super reliable. You know, every time I think, okay, well, we could get a new thermostat. Well, those are brand new thermostats, and they're not smart. But like, you know, it just feels like a waste to get rid of things that are already brand new.
No, I totally get that. That would be tight for, you know, like a real tight spot for us if we were like really considering this. I mean, unfortunately, this stuff, some of these categories of things were aging or non-existent when we even though this house, when we bought this house, it was kept up. I mean, you could not ask for a house to be taken better care of from a standpoint of like construction, you know, and like changing stuff about the house. Like there was nothing really that needed to be done. Just a couple of personal things on our wish list. But yeah, they kept, you know, perfect care of it. Took perfect care of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I get that. The garage door thing is true, by the way. Our garage door opener is probably one of the most frustrating smart things we have. But the one that is currently connected to HomeKit, because the other one is offline right now, it's really nice. I mean, you know, as being like a major entry point into the house, it's good to drive home and then have my phone suggest, do you want to open the garage? It's nice, you know, if you left it open. And you know, that's the same feeling that people get about having a smart thermostat, like, oh, I'm in bed and I want to just change the temperature a couple of degrees. I mean, a garage door is like an entry point into your house. Like it's a far more important and powerful thing to be able to manipulate from anywhere. So I guess, I don't know, there's that appeal, but the people you've heard from are absolutely right. Like it's such a frustrating thing. I feel like at least twice a year I have to go in and like reconnect it to HomeKit.
Well, so just to go back to speakers, unless, well, I asked you a question. Where would I go next? So do you have any suggestions? Because then I'm excited to talk speakers and HomePod stuff.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you've got the lights, if you've got some of those speakers, you're pretty good. I mean, most people are attracted to the thermostats, but you already kind of stated why that's on hold. So and I know you have recently acquired a TV that you can turn on and off through HomeKit. So that's another one that we really like. I guess that leaves, you know, everyone feels differently about this. We have locks on our doors.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, but that's another one. Like it came with a nice lock that has a keypad on it. Like that feels kind of like a waste too. So it's weird. They put certain things, and you know, I mean, builders are going to put stuff that makes the house appealing but not too expensive for them. You know, that's the role. So
yeah,
makes sense. But it's another one of those like, this is actually, it's fine because I can just punch in the code really fast. So yeah,
and then I guess what I would say is related to that. But I can't recommend one yet because there isn't a HomeKit supported doorbell yet, which is crazy to say. Like, I think HomeKit doorbell support was announced like 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and there is about to be a player on the market called NEEDTOBREATHE, and we have one of their cameras, and we love it. So I'm sure that doorbell is going to be really great once it comes out. But we've actually bought the Nest ones, and we have this little hub you buy called a Starling.io. Got mentioned on last episode too, and it basically tricks the Home app into thinking all of your Nest stuff is HomeKit compliant.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we got the 2 Nest Hello doorbells, and they're this little Starling box. I said this last time, but whatever, I'll say it again. So it's like they just keep taking all of these new HomeKit doorbell features and somehow hacking the Google stuff into supporting it. So like HomeKit came out with this feature last year where doorbells can recognize people. It'll, your HomePod can say like, Craig is at your front door. And within like a month or two, the Starling IO people were like, hey, we figured out how to have the Nest cameras do this. So, well, you're welcome to update it in the in the app. So, I mean, the only thing they don't have, which is important to some people, is HomeKit secure video. And they actually, I don't know how this is possible, but they have said on their Twitter that they're like going to maybe be able to add that. I don't know how, but they've said it, that they're working on it. So
that reminded me, though, we do have 2 Euros in our house, the Wi-Fi routers.
Right, yeah. How do you like those?
And those, first of all, they're great. And one of the benefits, one of the things the builders in this house did, there is a central Ethernet hub in our house that each room can be wired into the central hub, which is pretty incredible. So like that's upstairs, and the internet comes into the house upstairs, but then like the Euro that's in my office still has a wired connection. It's amazing.
Wow.
Which is on a completely different floor. So that's incredible. The Wi-Fi, we've got just way faster internet here. The provider, for whatever reason, I live way more rural than I did before, but the internet is better. Go fast. So that the combination of that and the Euro is fantastic. But it has it's their HomeKit compatible, and what that does is you can limit how different HomeKit devices access the internet, so that they're less easy to hack from outside. I don't entirely understand that, but it's super nice that it does that. So I feel better having all these Internet of Things devices in my house, knowing I kind of have more.
So speakers are a big category. Having us both just introduced a HomePod Mini into the situation. I mean, the thing is with the HomePod Mini is, I guess, not to review it here, but it's received a lot of accolades. I think it's like one of the cheapest things Apple sells, and it's a really, for its size, really, really good speaker.
It really is. I think we're gonna, when we get into another topic later, I'm gonna talk about playing guitar some. But I'm glad that in my office, I have a regular HomePod, because I do like on guitar with it, and I like having the extra sound and ability to drown out my family while I'm working. But so otherwise, a Mini is great for almost every other room. I don't know that I would ever need another big HomePod. The sound is great. It's so much smaller than I even expected. And so we've just got it in our kids' playroom, and we don't have any Amazon Echo products or Google Home. We just, for security, I feel like trust Apple more, that kind of thing. And we're just so tied in. We use Apple Music. I like to be able to run shortcuts, and everything's tied into HomeKit. We're so deep in the Apple ecosystem. The ability to get a speaker of this quality for $100 and it be tied into the ecosystem that I'm already so deep in it's amazing. Like, I definitely am going to get more of it, because I feel super privileged to be like, oh, it's not too big a deal to spend $100, but for what you get out of it, it's an easy proposition.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like relative to what Apple sells things for generally. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, for me to even like be able to have like introduced more than one new piece of technology into my life this fall, like, is awesome. But relative to what Apple sells things for, like, if you were a person who was on the fence about like, do I want the little cheaper Echo thing, or do I want the more expensive Apple thing? Like, the Apple thing, even the Mini, which is the cheapest and the smallest, still sounds better by far relative to, the competition for its price. And it offers all those other things that you mentioned. Like, if you're in the Apple world, it's great. Apple didn't make this when we first got our Echo, so we do have some Echo, and now Echoes come in everything. So I feel like there's a lot of Echoes listening to us in the house too. But it's really the Siri stuff that we interact with more. When it knows your calendar and can message people, you just get kind of in the habit of asking that smart speaker to do the job. And the appeal of the Mini is it's not only is it sounding pretty good for its size and is reasonably affordable relative to other Apple things, like it is kind of the default, I just want to be able to talk to a thing in my house, like it's reasonable for that. Whereas if you were buying the original $300 HomePod just so that you could get the Siri features, like, no way, too expensive.
Right. Oh, I mean, even I got my second HomePod. Best Buy will a lot of times have them for 30% off. So I got it for $200. And even that is honestly too expensive. It is not 2 times as good as the Mini at $200, much less $300. I could see a world where the Mini is $100 and the regular one is $150. But and the other thing, and this is so nerdy, and I'm kind of bouncing all around.
That's great.
Now that I have the Mini, the regular HomePods, their design looks old.
Yeah.
I just look at them and I'm like, I don't like how you look anymore. Which I didn't think, my Mini was delivered, I don't know, a week and a half ago. And I didn't think that at all before a week and a half. Now I look at it, you look dumb.
Try looking at, we have one of the original Echoes. Try looking at one of those. They look, it's still very useful, but it looks just like the cheap, I mean, it already looked like a really cheap piece of plastic, but now it's a really cheap piece of plastic. But, it does certain things. Well, this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. Because, like, if someone asked me who used Apple products, like, what's the smart speaker I should buy, I would just say, like, get as many HomePod Minis as is reasonable for you and that you want, and then just put them in some rooms and, speak into thin air and have a great time. I do, for the same reasons you said, I would not recommend the bigger one because I don't think that you're right. Even $200 is not really worth what you get for it. We have, partly due to Apple not really making an affordable HomePod, and partly due to wanting to, like, do this smart speaker kind of thing, like, earlier before Apple was really in this space. We've got some Sonos stuff in our house as well, and this has been an interesting thing, is like trying to reconcile them all. Like, how do I make sure that every Sonos is playing a useful part in this HomeKit centric smart home? Because we do our Sonos speakers do work with AirPlay, so we can send the audio from the phone or from an iPad to a Sonos speaker in the same way that you can send it to a HomePod. But there are weird quirks. Like, for example, if I tell Siri on my HomePod Mini sitting next to me right now to play the Oscar Peterson Christmas album, it'll play that directly from the cloud. Like, it won't play it on my phone. It'll play it streaming Apple Music directly to the HomePod because something about its operating system is capable of doing this. But if I say, yo, Siri, play music in the nursery where there's an older Sonos speaker, the Sonos speaker does have AirPlay, and it will play the Apple Music, but the way that the HomePod deals with it is whichever HomePod hears me say the command will stream Apple Music directly to itself, but then put itself at volume level 0, and then it'll pass off the audio to the Sonos. So it's like this weird thing where the Sonos is not capable of, like, streaming directly from Apple Music, but it can be a receiver from another. So, like, if you go to Control Center and you go to the play, forward, backwards buttons, you tap it, you get to, like, all of the sort of, like, what are all the things I'm logged into iCloud as, like, that are audio sources. And then you can take any one of those sources, whether it be an Apple TV or an iPhone or a HomePod, and then that can serve audio to any other number of AirPlay-enabled speakers in the house. So I don't know. It's weird. It's this, like, fragmented thing, but we're getting it to all sort of work with Apple Music. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I follow.
It's just kind of quirky.
One of the things that I love with Apple is, and the HomePod, is that my kids can use it. So I have, my oldest two are 6 and 5, My 5-year-old hasn't started kindergarten yet. She knows her letters, but she can't read. So figuring out how to go and like find something in the music app on her iPad and make it play on the HomePod, like never going to happen. Way above her pay grade, but she loves to listen to music. And so we've got this HomePod in the playroom, and I can't tell you how many times she's, called out, Yo Siri, play and whatever song, and Siri plays it, and she's just happy. And it's one of the reasons that like I'm able to sit and talk to you right now in the middle of the day on a Saturday, because my kid is content in the playroom right now, just listening to music and doing a puzzle or drawing, and so the ability for her to use that is incredible. And then, this isn't Apple Music related, but intercom. This has changed our lives. We went from a 1-story, 1,500 square foot house to a 2-story, more square foot house. And so the kids' playroom is upstairs, and Laura and I spend a lot more time downstairs, kitchen, living room, office. And so like when dinner's ready, we just intercom up to the playroom now and tell them, hey, come down, your dinner's ready, come set the table and do your chores. And they just come down, and I don't have to go up and downstairs anymore. And that's the like biggest like first world problems thing that was solved by this. I know, but man, it's great. And then they have fun with it too. Like like I'll just be sitting in the kitchen like making dinner while they're up in the playroom, and I'll just hear it come on like, Daddy, I love you. And like, you can't beat that. That's amazing,
Yeah, totally awesome.
So, do they take advantage of it and sometimes like do it too much? Yes. And we're having to work on that. But like all you have to do, and you can specify to everyone, you can just say, Yo Siri, intercom, and then say what you want. Just keep talking. And it works great. Or you can just say intercom a specific room. So I can say, Yo Siri, intercom playroom, girls come get dinner. And it doesn't go, I don't hear it in my office. It doesn't pop up on my Apple Watch. And if they happen to be on their iPad, it pops up on their iPad too if they've got headphones on. So they don't miss it with that. It's awesome.
It's one of those things where you are very much rewarded for using all of the Apple products. Like they, the whole like speak to the headphones if my kid is on their iPad. That's huge.
Yeah. So
go
ahead. I was just gonna say the HomePod Mini has been amazing already, and I want one for our master bedroom.
Yeah, the intercom was such a draw for me to have these in more of the rooms of the house, because my wife and I have been trying to make the walkie-talkie app on Apple Watch be a thing since its inception, and it's just still very buggy for us. It's a cool idea. Well, part of it is too, I'm going to throw my wife under the bus. She doesn't always wear her Apple Watch. And so like it always seems like the moment I want to try it, she's like, oh yeah, that's like charging or something. But it's also additionally just quite buggy and sometimes, misbehaves. So this intercom thing has worked pretty good for us, like 99% of the time so far. And yeah.
Yeah, I kind of forget walkie-talkie's a thing until my son accidentally turns it on my watch when I'm changing his diaper, which happens fairly regularly. He messes with my Apple Watch all the time. I don't know that. Other than that, I have no walkie-talkie.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done with it now that we've got intercom. Because who else would I walkie-talkie? Like, there's just, I'm not going to I don't, know your schedule. I'm not going to interrupt your day with walkie-talkie. And you don't even have it turned on. Like, I think I have it set to a setting where technically if you wanted to, you could just start talking to my watch and it would come out in the middle of my class.
Yeah, I'm on enough Zoom that was not good, so I don't ever have it.
I should probably turn that off. But the bottom line is this, no one, I don't know. It's just since the utility of it is more for immediate family anyway, it just makes sense. I saw a funny tweet the other day, I think it went something to the effect of, do you like yelling what a lot? Get married. This is one of these things. I don't know if it's just selective hearing or that the rooms are a little bigger in the new place, but I have to be in the same room as Mary. I can't be in one room over, or else we're just yelling what at each other all the time.
Same. And I'm sure it doesn't help that you and I have a musician that has probably been damaged by loud drumming / guitar.
Oh, now you reminded me of another funny thing. It was like, I think the comic book, one of the comic strips in one of the prominent newspapers. It was like a husband wearing like really expensive headphones, and his wife is like, "You're telling me you can hear the difference in these $300 pairs?" And something to that effect. But you couldn't hear what I said the other minute. I executed that poorly, but
I laughed.
That was all I was going for. Yeah, smart speakers, a good thing. It's cool to hear that the kid utility is an added benefit, because Theo is nowhere near of age. He does, by the way, mess with my Apple Watch. If we are talking about apps we're thankful for later, I think one of my apps I'm thankful for is one of the ones that also he does the most damage with on my watch.
I'm excited to hear what that is.
Do you want to do that topic? The only other thing I think, other than we were going to talk about, so in keeping with the Thanksgiving theme, we had planned on talking about apps and music that we are thankful for, and sort of like an extended
not
app and album
apps,
of the week,
but technology in general.
Sorry, I misread that, because yes, you are doing some things that are actually, I'm very excited about some of your picks that you put in the note here, because I have no idea what one of these is. But
I'm excited. This is gonna be fun. Let's go ahead and do it. We're talking about it. Let's go.
Okay, sounds great. Well, so yes, you mentioned your son messing with your Apple Watch. How do we want to do this? Like round robin? Do we want to do app picks back and forth?
Yeah. Do you want to do apps or music first?
I mean, you mentioned the Apple Watch thing is a possible segue. We could do technology.
Perfect.
We're thankful for. Perfect.
Let's do it. You go first.
Okay, perfect. This allows me to just go in order then, because I'm going to talk about an app for the Apple Watch called Home Run. Perfect tie-in to our 25 minutes of HomeKit home automation discussion. So if you use a convenient place to manipulate your home, if you've got lights or whatever, is from your watch. It's always on you. You can tell it to do things with the voice assistant. You can also open the app and tap on the lights that you want to turn on and off. The problem is that I think Apple believes that buttons should be really big on all of their anything that is an Apple Watch app, or like these new widgets that are on the iPhone. Like they don't really maximize space efficiency, which is, I guess, something that only a nerd would think about, who's trying to maximize the effectiveness of how many pixels are on the screen at once, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the home app on the Apple Watch, the buttons are so big, you can see only pretty much one of them on the screen at a time, which is so frustrating, because you have to scroll through this long list of devices to find, I want to make the air 2 degrees cooler. Well, it's like I'm scrolling through lights, because each one is like a little button, a big button that just takes up almost the entire screen. Not fun at all. So what Home Run does is, Home Run, when you open it, it basically says, okay, if you have a scene, which is, a combination of multiple accessories doing something at the tap of one button. Well, you can make that scene show up on a grid of little tiny square buttons. And so when you open Home Run, it's just going to be like, if you've set up a bunch of different scenes, you're going to just have this grid. You can fit so many. Let me open it real quick and just tell you how many. So on screen at the same time, I've got 12 possible things I can trigger, all one tap away at the same time. And these are scenes, so the multiple things happen at once when I tap one of these. It's not like I control a single light and then I scroll and then I tap another time to control another light. One of the 12 things on my screen at once is a button that I can tap in the morning, which will turn on all the lights, set the temperature to a nice temperature. It'll disarm the alarm system. It does all this morning routine kind of stuff. And that's just one thing. Another one of these quick buttons runs a scene called Theo Bedtime that plays these binaural sleep beats through his room and then dims the light so that we can read to him.
Oh.
And yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. And these things are all just so much more efficient to navigate to. The one downside is you can't make one of the little hot buttons a single accessory. I kind of wish that you could, because sometimes you just want to like toggle a thing on and off. These are all like scene triggers. But the cool thing is then you can put a complication on the watch, and the complication can be set to either open the app or to run a scene immediately. And what's great is you can schedule which scene it will run based on time of day. So I can have a one-tap button accessible from my watch face that if I tap it between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., it runs my good morning scene. If I tap it between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m., it runs the Theo bedtime scene. If I tap it after that, it runs the good night scene that shuts down all the lights and everything. It's a really, really cool app.
I'm going to have to think through. I have one or two scenes, mostly like one that, because Laura tends to go to bed after me. So I've got one that turns my lamp off and hers down to like 30%. Not black comes in. So I go to, that's really the only scene I've got. So I've got to think through how I could utilize those. And because that app sounds amazing.
It's cool. It's really cool. I'm impressed with it every time I use it. Because this is a person who gets like what the nerd people want. Like they want that level of customization that's just where like every possible thing you could think of that you could customize is available to you. And I just love that.
Awesome. You ready for me to do a pick?
Yeah, do it.
I'll start with the one that you don't know what this is. So people who have listened to us together on the Class Nerd know that I used to be a classroom teacher, but prior to that, I was a professional guitar player in Nashville, and I was always, for those of you who aren't guitar players, amplifiers for electric guitar, the best ones tend to run off old vacuum tubes. And the sound that you get is from those tubes kind of being overpowered by your guitar signal and the volume, so you get a good crunchy, good guitar sound. And so, but tube amps are very loud. And, through the years, there have been many, many products that have been amp modelers, and they're digital, they run off computer chips instead of tube. But for years, processors in those things, just computers were not powerful enough to really simulate the nuance and the feel of playing on a real guitar. But it's 2020, and we have some really stinking powerful computers now. Yeah. And so I have sold my tube amp, and I now run entirely off of a Kemper profiling. And the Kemper, it doesn't just pretend to be, they like dial in to make it sound sort of like this style of amp. You can actually profile your own amplifiers. And so you like plug the Kemper into a guitar amp, mic up the guitar amp, and run the mic signal back to the Kemper. And you can run it, do it in a nice studio with nice preamps, everything you need. And it like plays, it sounds like dialing up AOL in the 90s. It's like all sorts of weird static and stuff. And it then listens to how your amp responds to, if I put this much low end through it, how does that sound? This much high end, this much volume, how does the sound change when I'm at a quieter volume versus a loud? All the things that really define a guitar and an amplifier and how it feels. And then it emulates that. And so I'm just hooked. I'm playing guitar so much more because I had loud tube amps that I couldn't play at home with kids. And now this has a headphone jack. And so my tone is, I would say, 99% as good as a tube amp, if not 100%. Really? Like it's really good. And I can do it with headphones. And the one that I got is the Stage, which you can run everything. It like a little pedal board, so you just keep it, and I run everything out of this. So all my effects, my delays, my reverb, my overdrives, all of it, just in one convenient box. And, I don't have to carry a giant amp. And then it's also, because you record it, you can record it in a studio with microphones and pre's and stuff. It's kind of already dialed in to fit into a mix when you're live. And so you don't, like when you're miking up an amp, your tone is at the mercy of the sound guy. Whereas this, you plug an XLR into this and it runs direct and it already sounds good. And you're not having to have the sound guy mic your amp in a different spot. You just have a lot more control. And so, I mean, not that I'm out playing anywhere live right now because, 2020, but I'm excited to church. Who knows? So anyway, it's been a game changer because it's allowed me to really play guitar again and make it a fun hobby. And I've been like going back and just learning a bunch of songs that I had never learned, or, like classic, been working on some Queen stuff and, just classic, stuff that I, never really learned exactly note for note. And it's given me it's a hobby now. So I'm not having to do it for my job. It's given me an outlet really in 2020. And I got a new guitar. That's not.
Oh, what kind of guitar?
It's a Duesenberg Star Player TV.
Where is that made?
Germany.
Okay.
I won't. I've already gone way deep on guitar technology, so I won't. I'll send you some info. But
I'm curious. Yeah, I don't know how many people listen to this show that are specifically guitarists or guitar teachers, but given the crossover with technology, I'm sure that there are quite a few. So, this is all really interesting stuff. I'm sort of skeptical. I mean, if there's one thing that's important to the Music Ed Tech Talk podcast, by extension of it being my thing, it's good tone quality. Shortly followed by, I guess, thematically apps, because, we talk about a lot of tech. A lot of apps get discussed on the show, but it's like, to me, I hear that and I'm like, it's hard to believe that you can get that level of quality of tone, but, you're the one who's using it. So,
yeah, it's, for me, it's a no-brainer. I'm sure there's some nuance. It may really realistically be like 98%. It may not be 100%, but it really is good. Also, I just texted you a picture of my new guitar.
Nice.
It's more baby blue. That picture makes it silver. It's a little more.
Oh, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is beautiful. I love this style. This is not, if I owned one electric guitar that looked like a signature electric guitar, I feel like I would want something that was I'm just talking purely aesthetics here, but like the Telecaster is kind of the look that I'm most attracted to, but this is great. This is really, really attractive. Yeah, you describe this color as blue?
It is more, it's kind of like a baby / powder blue, but for whatever reason, the lighting in that.
Cool. Very, very cool. I wonder if because you said yours is attached to a pedal board. There's like such an industry for software plugins that you'd use in a DAW, like a Logic or an Ableton Live, and I think it's interesting. I guess the protocols aren't there, but it would be interesting to see something like a hardware unit like this have be a platform for someone to say like, okay, I'm a guitar pedal maker and I've got this digital sound I've engineered. Like someone can buy it and like actually install it into the same brain that they use for all of their other guitar playing.
I know that like in the studio, guitar players like Corey Wong use he just uses plugins for his amp simulators and things. So there, it's I don't remember who he said makes the plugins that he uses, but we're not too far off from he actually, I remember I heard an interview, he was like, I like playing, and he plays very clean. He's a funk guitar player, so it's a very clean sound. It's not overdriven, not a lot of effect, but he likes that sound recorded better than even an amp.
That's so interesting to me because I as far as that that style of music goes, I consider him to have very, very good tone.
Exactly.
That works for that. Gosh, yeah, so interesting that he does that. I think Instagram has done some ads. Well, I also follow him on Instagram, so I forget which source it was, but he's got a plugin that he helped to develop.
Interesting.
Recently. Yeah, you buy it, you run it through Logic or whatever, and yeah, it's got a bunch of different Cory Wong sounds. I assume that most people know, like, I assume a lot of people, so many music teachers know Vulfpeck and love Vulfpeck, so I just assume that most people are at least aware of that name. Cory Wong is their guitarist, for those who did not have that connection. Or did you say that, within the past minute?
I don't think I did, so you're good.
His solo, he's done so much solo work recently. His solo stuff is also listenable. We listen to a lot of it around the house. It's all already been featured in previous albums of the week on this show, so I can't use it for... I mean, I can still say that I'm thankful for his music, but...
Right. I promise I will not take as long on any of my other...
You should. I'm very wordy. There's nothing I hate more than when I edit the audio waveform and mine looks like I just talk the whole time. It's like I'm self-conscious about it. I'm like,
that's never happened when I was editing the class nerd. Never.
Oh boy. All right. Technology we're thankful for. All right, you help me pick. Am I gonna be? It's either between this next one or the one right after it, and I feel like the next one is the second of the two next picks is like more will help people more if I talk about it.
No, do the fun one.
Do the fun one. All right. I'm thankful for TikTok.
You know, me too. Tell me why you are.
I like TikTok a lot. I assume all risk in using it. I know that there are some privacy implications for having an account with it, but I just have to say, like, TikTok. Okay, so here's what TikTok I think gets right. It's like all of the other social media, and even TikTok is arguably not social media, but all the other things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their algorithm that chooses for you what you see has just gotten so much worse and worse and worse and worse and worse over the years that I almost never see anything that I actually want to see, because they are designed to like not to show you things that are going to make them advertising money, you know. So like even if I like, it preys upon, you know, me being the victim of my own human stupidity too. It's like I linger a little bit when I'm reading, like, you know, I don't click on even, but I like linger a little bit when I'm reading like an article someone had posted with like a hot take headline, you know. It's like Facebook will just start feeding me more of that stuff. So social media is just like preying upon, you know, getting your attention as much as they possibly can. And the content is like less and less what actually I care about, which is, you know, Facebook's utility is that I'm connected to people through it. I'm connected to people I'm not connected to anywhere else. I want to see my friends' kids, who I am not as connected to as I once was. But no, you don't show me that. You show me like political ads all the time. So it's very frustrating. TikTok, for some reason, just like keeps delivering, like you just swipe up, you see a video. If you don't like it, you swipe past it, just like any other thing. But it just keeps good content coming at whatever the amount of time is that I have for it. So like, as long as I keep swiping up, it keeps delivering me content that's either interesting, funny. Now it's all very much in a 1 minute video package, so I'm not going to see anything that's going to change my life on TikTok. But I don't know. I just appreciate it because it's like I go on Twitter and I'm seeing this, like it's recycling stuff in the algorithm that I've already seen before it's even showing me all of the tweets of the people I subscribe to. It's just so frustrating. But TikTok, nonstop, joyous videos, mostly comedy and music for me, fun duets. Did I tell you about my viral TikTok?
You sent it to me. I saw it. It was the sleigh ride, right?
Yeah, and now I'm like even more thankful for TikTok because I've like experienced from the other end, like, what does it mean to participate? And someone, a woodwind player recorded, there's this like famous, like the piece Sleigh Ride that you hear on the radio all the time this time of year.
I played it in high school band every year, Christmas.
Yeah. Every high school musician has played the Leroy Anderson arrangement of Sleigh Ride. And some woodwind player, let me properly accredit him. He's called Flute Dude on TikTok, and I'll link his profile in the notes. He recorded himself playing the first flute part, and then he did what's called a duet, which is one of my favorite things on TikTok, where someone records themselves reacting in sync with another person's TikTok. And so he duetted himself playing the second flute part, and then he's a multi-woodwind specialist. So then the first clarinet part, then the second clarinet part, then the third clarinet part, and then a trumpet player duetted the duet of him playing all of those different woodwind parts. Well, now he added the first trumpet part, and the second trumpet part, and the third trumpet part. And I said, this is my chance. I see an opening. I have a half an hour between two classes. won't always have the motivation to do this, I'm going to real quick like get all the percussion parts on my iPad and record them. So I did. And the one video that had like me, it's like in the foreground is me playing tempo blocks. And then, like when you duet something, the videos, it looks like the leftmost video is like the duet. And then because it's side by side, like the video that's on the right is the video of me duetting my previous self. So like the way that it looks on the screen is that the squares I'm duetting myself with just get like smaller and smaller progressively to the right of the phone screen. But for some reason, the one that went viral is like me playing the tempo block part, which is like what sounds like the horse.
This is why I suspect the best between that and the whip sound are the best percussion parts in Sleigh Ride.
And I think that's why that one is the one that went viral, even though I duetted that one with me fulfilling all of the percussion parts by playing sleigh bells. And my son was even on my lap wearing a cute elf outfit.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
The one I saw.
It drives me insane that one didn't become the viral hit. But I don't know, like within a day, I got like 2,500 new followers, and like got that the one with the temple blocks in the foreground got like 250,000 views or something. I don't know. It was crazy. There was a while where anytime the app was open, I had to close it because like every second I would have like 10 new notifications. And you could tell that TikTok serves its crowd correctly, like that it figures out who wants to see what, because all of the comments you couldn't have possibly written unless you had actually played that piece in high school band.
First of all, congratulations on going viral on TikTok. I'm really proud of you. And I'm not, it sounds like I'm being sarcastic. I'm not. It's great. I'm genuinely proud. I think it's hilarious. The algorithm on TikTok is so good. It had me figured out to the point where it started serving me. I mentioned earlier, I play guitar at church. So, church music, guitar is a thing that I'm interested in. Also, something I'm interested in is Star Wars. I am a huge Star Wars nerd. And it found there's a guy who plays Star Wars themes over worship songs on guitar. and I'm just like, how did you know? And it's the exact right content for me. And all sorts of other funny Star Wars worship music memes. So that, and just so much funny. Anytime there's a funny cat or funny baby, it's going to show that. Apple joke. Have you seen the girl who does the impersonations of her GPS and her Apple Watch?
So good.
Yeah,
yes.
They're amazing. Yeah, every one of her videos shows up. So anyway, yeah, I've never created any content. I don't even know what my username is because I think I made it so obscure because I didn't want anybody to find me. So I have no interest in creating, but every night before I go to bed, I'm scrolling TikTok for at least 15 minutes or so, if not longer.
It's so good. Yeah, I appreciate it. I like I said, I just think that it is more fun. I'm obviously more successful in my one stint with TikTok. I can't believe if someone can tell me how to get people to pay attention to the work I actually put time into, which is my blog. I would love to know, how do I like get that many likes on Twitter? I think you just have to say a funny tweet and then catch the right moment.
Yeah.
Funny. But now I feel like I owe the world more TikTok content. That's the feeling you get.
I'm waiting for it. I need it.
So I actually did do one. So there's this other meme that, again, you're absolutely right. This stuff, it learns who you are, because there's this like music theory nerd meme that's been passed around all the music teachers lately, where it's a picture someone took in a craft shop.
I've seen this. It's so good. I'm sorry I interrupted you because your audience has no idea, but it's my favorite thing. Yes.
I'm sure they do, actually, because this has been like, if it's made it to Facebook, it's already like permeated the general public, because it's like, it's not just that you have to find it on TikTok or like Reddit or someplace where it begins. Like this meme is full blown success. It is a picture of on a rack at a store. Like it could be home goods store or like a craft store, whatever. It's like a little wooden thing you would use as a decoration. And I guess because of copyright issues, it's the words, like it has a staff on it, and then the words to, I've seen two of them now. I've seen Jingle Bells, but the one that's more popular is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. But the accompaniment and like the pitch is all like changed because I think it's copyright, or it was just anyway. The particular TikTok that introduced me to it was the caption said, when you want to spread some Christmas cheer, but you're a simple woodworker, not a musician. And then
that's what I assumed had happened, was they had no idea of what actual music notes.
But the thing is that the music notes, like the melody matches the accompaniment. It's just really bad writing, and obviously not the melody of whatever it is, like Christmas. What did I say before?
Have yourself
a Merry Little Christmas, right? So her TikTok is her singing verbatim. She's obviously like got singing, classical singing training. It's her just singing verbatim what is on the piece of wood. And she says, please duet this, musicians. So I will also link in the show notes my TikTok of me playing verbatim the vibraphone, on the vibraphone, the accompaniment, except for one alteration is, one of the quirks is that the word Christmas is like written underneath of a quarter note. So it's not even like the right rhythm. So she in her video like goes, I think it goes, have yourself a very, very little, what is it? What are the words?
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
There we go. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. And then she like collapses the word to fit into a quarter note. And so I did that to sympathetically accompany her interpretation on vibes. It's a good TikTok because then in the very last, it's a very brief TikTok. Like it cuts off pretty quick after her singing, but I managed to improvise a jazz lick right after the singing line is done, and then right in that like split second where I'm improvising a jazz lick, there's a little dancing Santa that appears at the bottom of the TikTok. You have to see it. Yep. Why am I describing this right now?
I'm excited. Before you put it in the show notes, text it to me.
Okay, yeah. I definitely will.
I'm going to be quick on my second pick.
Okay.
Text Expander is something that you and I have talked about many times because you and I talk about automation a lot. And it's funny, I had gotten away from using it when I went iPad only because it's not as great on iOS. The apps have to be compatible with it, and I just wasn't using it as much. And about a month ago, I realized there was some stuff I was trying to make other applications that we've spoken about, like drafts or shortcuts, do that I was like, well, not shortcuts back, but regardless, some things that I was like, this is a job for Text Expander, and I'm dumb. And so I reset my subscription to start again and started paying for it. And it has saved me. I haven't even looked at the stats, but so much time and frustration just over the last month that I'm like, I don't know why I was dumb and fighting against this. So thank you, Text Expander. For those of you who don't know, it's keyboard shortcuts, or you can type, if I want to type, so a great example, my company, we use Calendly to schedule appointments a lot. And I have several different Calendly appointments. I work for a software company. And so sometimes I just, a customer wants a meeting on training. Sometimes it's on a technical call and we need one of my engineers to come and be on the call too. So I've got one that has his calendar and mine tied. And so I can just type, I do ;tech, and it puts the link for the technical call, and I don't have to go copy it every time. Just stuff like that, to where I remember a few keywords and shortcuts, and it expands much longer things and puts them into emails and things like that. It's fantastic, and you should absolutely go look at Text Expander.
Yeah, if you're teaching music right now, especially in the performing arts, and you're finding yourself grading a lot of what would be performance assessments, but now they are like video submissions to your LMS, and you're like typing the feedback that would be verbal. Things like, you see a trumpet performance, and now it's like, well, okay, like do this with your right hand to help relax, and do this to get a better tone. And, these like, yeah, I mean, every performance is individual and different, but we find ourselves getting a lot of the same feedback over and over and over again. And if you're living in Canvas to give musical feedback to your students, like you can make Text Expander snippets for common pieces of feedback. So I can have, like, if I'm saying the same thing to the kid again about like, putting the camera angle in portrait mode for our virtual band project, like I can just have like / camera angle, and then it'll just like write out, because I don't have time to be nice to these kids every single time. There's like a certain way you can craft a sentence that reads really nicely and is detailed and supportive and encouraging, but that takes a lot of effort. So why not automate it?
Exactly. So thank you, Text Expander. I'm thankful. Okay.
So it sounds like you don't use the iOS app at all. Is that right?
No, I don't. But I'm honestly, if we're being honest, I don't use iOS a whole lot for productivity. My iPhone, obviously, like I've got widgets with my calendar and a few things, but everything work related is on my work Mac. And so there's just nowhere that I really would, maybe like journaling or something, but even there, just not, there just aren't, I'm not using iOS in that way anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely not quite as easy to use, but because it's, you have to like change the keyboard over, but it's easier in some cases. Like a lot of I'm trying to be more active. Speaking of Facebook, one way that actually it has been useful for me is like music teachers have really turned to Facebook to be a source of like ideas for online learning. And if I have a particular blog post or video that I've done that I think would be helpful to a person, for more reasons than just, also imposter syndrome and not wanting to self-promote myself would be others on the list of reasons why I don't typically insert my work into these kinds of places. But lately I'm like, well, they asked and it could be helpful. So I've got like blog posts of mine that are like I type / and then virtual band, and then it like just expands the URL to my blog post on how to make one. And, so, you're like lounging around on Facebook on your phone. That's just makes it a little easier than digging into a note somewhere.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah. Still not as easy as the computer version. That's for sure. I'm going to write about and probably talk about this at much greater length in the future, but it finally happened. One of the most useful and important iPad apps that I have until now only been able to use on iPad is now finally on the Mac. Fourscore has a Mac version. If you are on the brand new operating system Big Sur, you can go to the App Store. It's a universal purchase. So if you've bought the iPad version of Fourscore, then you have it on Mac for free. And it is, Fourscore is still, to me, like if you're looking for a place to organize and work with your PDF sheet music library, Fourscore is really the industry standard. And for the price, I think it's still not much more than, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's like less than $15. It was like $7 when I got it. And they are still years. I think I've had this app for 9 years now. They are still updating this app. And that includes now they've developed this Mac app. And I don't know, I'm super thankful for it because I'm teaching online. I'm sharing my screen a lot. And it doesn't make sense to have my Fourscore library perfectly managed on iPad and then have like that same system of PDFs be in the file system of my computer. Like it just breaks my brain to do it that way. So it's so nice to open up Fourscore on the Mac and be able to just put it on the part of my screen I'm sharing and then like show sheet music to my kids because, it's way better for organizing stuff. And then because it is a Mac app, it is using Catalyst, which is that technology where, iPad apps can be ported to Mac apps. So there are some weird quirks that I'm working on writing about. Some, things like some of the like swipey gestures for turning pages on the iPad translate weirdly to like mouse clicks, but it's overall a great experience. You can interact, in all the ways you would expect to with a Mac app. You can import files using the system file browser. You can drag the title of a document from the sidebar out and into an email or a message or to the desktop, and it'll, drag it as a PDF. It's well implemented. It does not have iCloud syncing yet, so I kind of had to temporarily move my core library to the Mac version, which is where I'm using it right now far more often. But they're working on cloud syncing for a future version, so that'll eventually not be an issue.
I obviously don't have a for Fourscore, but it sounds really incredible. And in general, I'm excited about the future of Mac apps as the Catalyst framework allowed developers bring more and more stuff and have more feature parity between iPad and Mac and iPhone. Great, you're able to have that.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's just like, things that define the iPad as the essential tool are now coming to the Mac. And, while they're always going to feel more like iPad first apps, it's just so nice to be able to see your stuff. Because there's things you do on the Mac. Sorry, I'm going on. There's things that the Mac is better at, like file management. If part of the utility is like you want to edit the metadata of your score library, it's just nice to be able to do that part of it on a more precise and agile device, and then do the obvious reading part of it, which is better suited towards a tablet that you can rip off of its keyboard case and put on a music stand. Like, I don't know. It just works really well for the way that I want to do things.
Well, and one of the reasons why I don't use my iPad is how bad it is at video. I can't have a video conference up on my screen and have notes next to it to take notes on the meeting. It's all or nothing. And in 2020, that's terrible. And so I've got to use a Mac because 90% of my job is me being on Zoom with it. So there's no way around it. So to have apps that I love to be able to take those and things like that it's invaluable. I'm 100%.
Yeah, right on.
All right, I really will be fast on this last one. I am thankful for Apple Pay this year. Just in the middle of a pandemic, being able to push a button on my watch and hold it up next to something instead of having to like deal with the credit card and all that. It's been great. And part of the reason why I'm so thankful for it is I've noticed, for whatever reason, here in Alabama, there are a lot more Apple Pay places, even like gas stations, which is awesome, than there were in Nashville. So, I've been able to use it more, and I'm grateful, and also to have it on my watch because I don't have to deal with Face ID when wearing a mask. And, not that I'm going a whole lot of places, but grocery store or things like that, it's really helpful to just be able to Apple Pay. So I'm really, even it's 6 years old, and it's taken way too long for it to catch on here in the United States as opposed to other. But it seems like it's becoming.
Yeah, that's great. Apparently, our the DC Metro card now can operate on Apple Pay. Like, I'm sorry, I'm mixing it. Apple Pay is, you usually interact with it through the like double clicking the side button of the phone. So I'm, like the gesture that pulls up the wallet app.
Yeah.
I sort of think of those features as one and the same. Anyway, I mean, no one is going anywhere, so I can't test it out. But I'm like, yeah, that would be really cool to like go into DC and not have to carry an extra card in my wallet. So convenient. Right on. All right. Do you want to do albums?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, this is just, I don't know. Do you associate music with certain seasons of the year that you discovered?
Oh, 100. Even like my wife and I talk about it, and you'll learn this as Theo gets older, but like certain kids' songs and stuff will always be ingrained in a certain time in our lives. Like my kids discovered the Disney Channel movies Descendants, which are Kenny Ortega movies, musicals, right after my youngest, Sam, was born. And we watched those movies like crazy when he was like brand new. And so anytime they still now bust out something from Descendants, it takes us back to Sam being a new, like it will, so many things. John Mayer's Heavier Things takes me back to my junior year of high school. And like, I had just gotten my driver's license, and, it was one of the first, like, listening when I first had that freedom. That was the album I was listening to. Absolutely. That was way too much deep to respond to that question when I could have done a simple yes.
Well, but that's entirely the point. I think, like, the strength of that association sort of that's driven some of my music that I've been listening to lately. Because, I mean, all the music that I've been listening to that is newer has like recently been mentioned on App and Album of the Week picks in recent episodes. But there's a couple things I've been re-listening to lately that have been, just like really, well, one thing is, I guess, new and hasn't, that I'm going to mention today. But like, there's just been things that I've been listening to, either because I'm using them as teaching tools in my class right now, or because I just fell in love with them around this time of year. And I guess the first of those picks is I've just been listening to lots of Brahms, from the Cleveland Orchestra, from the George Szell time. So that I suspect if you're like teaching in the public school system, maybe you have some sort of knowledge of this, but like, I don't know, the orchestras, for whatever reason, like, some of them had a sound, and I don't know, it could be just that like people travel and play with different international groups more regularly, or we have, because of the recording industry and technology, like we have more access to listening to different kinds of ways of interpreting things, or maybe it's just because music directors stayed with orchestras for years and years and years and years and years and years in the middle of the 20th century, and that's not as much the case. I don't know. For whatever reason you want to say, like there are certain recordings that to me have a sound, and like I think of the Cleveland Orchestra, during this time as like having that characteristically what is known as the Cleveland sound, like having that kind of like this like bright, brittle, very, very articulate, percussive kind of sound that is like matched in the whole orchestra. Like everyone in the orchestra is playing with this same interpretation all the way down to the timpani player, and so you get just a very, very particular kind of interpretation. And I don't know, for whatever reason, like this type of sound and like these recordings of this sort of like what we in at least when you're studying like music in a traditional kind of environment like I was, where you're like looking at these as masterworks, this was the kind of thing that I was thinking about and studying, and this is like part of my playing of timpani. My love of that comes from listening to a lot of these recordings and appreciating them. So I don't know, it's just like, why am I listening to them now? Well, part of it is like I'm trying to have Theo get a really rounded kind of musical listening experience, and I'm trying to have there be at least a time in the day where there isn't any other major distractions happening that would overpower music. So I sort of have like some jazz that we're listening to, some classical recordings we're listening to, and then like beyond. So that was one of the things that I was like, yeah, this is like something that's good to listen to, and I've just been reappreciating those. I mean, I never really don't listen to those recordings because I teach and refer to them so often in my private lessons. But I don't know, they've been on.
It's so interesting as someone who, I was in band in middle and high school, have a lot of experience there, but I'm not nearly as deep as you are into that. It's really interesting to hear how you describe, and I love just whenever somebody is super passionate about something, it's interesting to hear them talk about it, even if you know nothing about it. I've been learning about that.
Wait.
I'm going to go in a completely different direction and go
Nice.
with an album that came out I think back in August, by Ruston Kelly, who is one of my favorite singer-songwriters in Nashville. That's a theme, Nashville, songwriter. Nashville.
Yep.
For me. Do you have any artists that like, doesn't matter what they're singing about, or there's just something about the tone of their voice and the melodies that they choose that just like connects with you, and you're just like, whatever you're putting out, I'm going to listen to it because I feel it.
Yeah, it's almost entirely the basis of how I listen to music. We can talk about that at another time, though.
Yeah. So Ruston Kelly for me is one of those people. Every year, he's put out an album every other year or so for the last few years, and every year when he does, that album is one of my top 5 of the year. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if other people get that. My wife doesn't get why I like him as much. She likes him, but there's just something about it. I'm in 100%. And so he had an album come out in August, and it's called Shape and Destroy. And if you're looking to get into it, the first song on the album is called Radio Cloud, and it may be my favorite song. He's just great, and it's very like country folky, but like pop with some pop sensibilities. Like my wife describes it as like if the Wallflowers were a little bit more on the country side.
Okay.
And I like that. So Ruston Kelly, Shape and Destroy.
Nice. Very, very nice. Okay. I'm going to keep with my seasonal theme. And, there's some things that are like, that descend or ascend. So like nothing that's good is limited to a particular season. There's just certain things that I associate more with seasons. And then there are things that like I can listen to any time of year and all times of year, pretty much nonstop. And this next record is like definitely something I discovered in the summer, and it definitely has some of like the tonal qualities that you might describe, like when you think of like R&B or like hip hop or any kind of like soul infused kind of style of music that is using particular kinds of like synth sounds and drum beats. Like you are creating, like a kind of like vibe that can easily be the backdrop of driving with the top down or like relaxing on your back porch. Like there's a certain color spectrum of sound that like within that style works for that kind of thing. And so I consider this to be a summer record. I actually should look up when this record came out and see if it actually did come out in summer. It doesn't matter though, because this is when I first encountered it. And the album's called Painted by Lucky Daye, who is a New Orleans artist who has I actually didn't know until I recently looked this up, that this record was nominated for a Grammy in the 62nd Grammy Awards. It's so exceptionally good. Like if you are listening to things that are on the verge of the sort of the pop end of things, but like also sort of maybe better classified as neo soul. I'm talking about people, like Anderson .Paak, Frank Ocean, like even the Childish Gambino stuff. Like if you're listening to a lot of these people and like sort of their take on these soul sounds, but like sort of putting them into a modern context, I don't know. This record just really hits the spot for me. Like every track sounds like, one track will sound almost like a Frank Ocean song, and then the next song will sound almost like it's like an Anderson .Paak song. I don't know. The next song will sound almost like a Thundercat song, and you go through these records, but it all works as a record. But every track has things about it that I like for different reasons, and it's all entirely very catchy, very, very groove centered. I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about it. Like it's an extremely listenable album. And if you like neo soul music or soul music at all, or any of the artists I just mentioned, I feel like you will get down with this record.
All right. My next pick is the new album by NEEDTOBREATHE. My theme, by the way, is just albums that have been on heavy rotation in the last few months. So not seasonal, just like playing the snot out of it. And yeah. Also, new albums by some of my favorite artists. That's probably a better theme. These are all three probably top 10 favorite artists for me, and they've all had new albums come out in 2020. So let's go with that. NEEDTOBREATHE, one of my favorite bands. Since like 2009 when their Outsiders album came out, and I've slowly, like every time they would come to Nashville, they would play at a slightly bigger venue, and so I've seen them at a small club, all the way up to opening for Taylor Swift at Bridgestone Arena, and everywhere in between. They're just a great like rock band, southern rock kind of. And their new album, it was produced by probably my favorite producer in Nashville, Kason Cooley, and Jeremy Latito is the drummer, and just one of my favorites. So yeah, it's a great album, Out of Body, and trying to think of the song. The title track is a great one. So big NEEDTOBREATHE fan. Having new from this year. One of the things that's helped me get through a hard year.
Yeah, it's interesting that we are still sort of reaping the benefits of media that was produced before COVID, because I feel like we're still getting movies, TV shows, music, and music can so much more easily be produced in a socially distant way and from the home.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely has been, like, I think I would be going pretty insane if there was no new music to listen to right now.
And there's still like One Republic, another one of my favorites. They had an album that was supposed to come out in like April, and they've held it, and it's still just not out, and they don't have a release date for it that I've heard. And so it's like there's a whole One Republic album just sitting there waiting to come out, I guess, until they can tour it or something. I don't know, but there's still stuff that is yet to come.
It'll be so interesting to see, because a lot of musicians are creating right now, and it'll just be interesting to see that, how fruitful this time is for that. And if in retrospect, like any of it reflects the current time. I'm trying to remember where I heard this, that like there's almost, I'm trying to remember which plague in history it was that I was listening to on some podcast where the hosts were talking about like that there's like not a ton of art from that time period that like refers to the plague. I'm obviously not prepared to talk about this because I don't even remember what plague it was, what podcast I was listening to, but I don't know. It's just, but the idea is interesting to me, like how, people tend to want to not think about, or in some way or another to escape this kind of global situation.
I just looked it up. The Need to Breathe record is scheduled to come out in March of next year, and I genuinely think it was April or May of this
year. Wow, that's a long time. Yeah. Well, my final pick is related a little bit to teaching, specifically just because it's something that I've been playing for my students. So, when you teach in a band setting, you have to find models for your students. Who are the heroes that I want my students to have? Like, who are the trumpet heroes? Who are the tuba heroes? I'm thinking about all brass instruments now because I'm teaching just brass and percussion students the first half of the school year. And, there's just so much repertoire to choose from. And a lot of the sort of like the staples, like the things that are sort of canonized, are like come from like sort of an orchestral background, or sometimes don't resonate. Like I just feel like Mozart is, for whatever reason, like especially like that part of musical history is like such a hard sell. Like, all right, here's what a horn sounds like. Here's the Mozart horn concerto. I don't know. It's just that stuff is not. I don't get in with kids as easily as I do with that stuff as I do some other things. And so a record that represents absolutely like just amazing top-notch musicians playing brass instruments, and that my kids resonate with is it's this album by the Boston Brass. It's called Rewired, from about 5 years ago. And what I like about it is we do these breathing exercises. There's this video book series called The Breathing Gym. And, I play the video for my students at the beginning of class sometimes. Actually, every day since we've been online. And Sam Palafian is a world-renowned tuba player, and he's one of the breathing coaches in the video. And it's cute because it's like a little bit dated. Their outfits are just so cheesy looking, and all the jokes are really bad. And but he's just this absolute legend on the tuba, and he is on this record. So I've kind of just been telling them like, hey, it's the breathing guy, but like this is him, playing the tuba. And then the stuff on the record is like, it's a lot of new stuff. It's a lot of things that have been sort of arranged that are like in the popular mind, like Summertime by George Gershwin. There's a Fly Me to the Moon arrangement. Maria from West Side Story. There's this great piece called the Ritual Fire Dance that they love. Some Bach is on it. Stuff that for whatever reason, like, I don't know, middle school kids just like this stuff more than classical era music. And it's all just played with such great, speaking of tone quality, such great tone quality, such great authority. They're just on fire on this record. And it's just such a great model for students. So I've been listening to a ton of it with them to develop an idea of brass tone.
All right, my final pick, Thad Cockrell, again, one of my all-time favorite artists. His song Rosalind from his first album, the album called To Be Loved. I would genuinely put Rosalind in my top 5 favorite songs of all time. Again, something about his voice, something about that melody, the combination of the two, it gets me every time. And he then, for a little while after To Be Loved came out, he joined a band called Leagues with the aforementioned Jeremy Latito, drummer, producer. And Leagues put out 2 incredible albums. And now he's released his first solo album in 10 years, I think, at least. And it's called If In Case You Feel the Same. I don't love it as much as To Be Loved, but it's still fantastic. He is, it's very singer-songwritery, but with like some synth and more electronic drum sounds and stuff. Like folk guitar, singer-songwriter guitar with poppy beats and stuff. It's great. And his voice. So favorite song on there is Slow and Steady, which was also a League song that he kind of redid and put on a solo album. But so Thad Cockrell, one of the best singer-songwriters ever. And now, I mean, he spends more of his time writing with other people in Nashville, doing his own stuff. But just, I can't say enough about what music.
Yeah, that kind of like circle of people who write and perform, but also write for other performers in Nashville is like, we've talked about this before. It's like an entire musical entity in of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad. It's one of the things, I don't feel that I miss as much right now that I've moved away from Nashville because of COVID. I wasn't going to shows anyway. But I think when the world starts to open up again and I don't have Nashville's concert scene, those musicians that local, I don't have access to that. I'm going to be sad.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense, sure.
Well, Robby, it is, I don't know if you normally tell when you're recording this, but it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I live in Auburn, Alabama, and Auburn is about to play Alabama in football in the Iron Bowl in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go and cheer on Auburn in a game they're sure to lose. But I'm so glad to have been here for talking out Apple stuff. Having a more fun topic rather than just, a more current one. It's current in that we were talking about stuff we're thankful for, but getting to spend some time on several apps and pieces of music, a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you being here so much. It's been awesome. Enjoy the game.
Thank you. I'm going to try to.
I guess pending how the game goes.
Yeah. Well, when you go in with your expectations low, then, they can only meet or exceed your expectations. So. All
right, Craig. Well, again, it's been so awesome. Until next time, stay classy.
And stay nerdy.
Okay, real quick. Before you stop listening, don't move on to your next podcast. Yeah. I've got to say all that closing stuff and the theme song's going to come. But before you leave, I want to tell you about two things. The first thing is that back in the fall, I released a new product and launched a store on my website. On the store, I have released my first couple of products. It is a set of play-along tracks for student musicians to practice scales along to. So what it is it's a collection of about 70 plus audio recordings that have different scale patterns, each in all 12 major keys, and where students can practice their scales along to them. Now, each one of these patterns has a trap beat, which I'm finding that my students think is very fun to play along to, and justly in tune tuning drones that I used making the Yamaha Harmony Director. So in every key area of every scale, the intervals are being reinforced to the tonic using justly in tune intonation. So it's a great resource. Hopefully it's something that's useful to many of you who teach in these kinds of settings. I do sell these for $15 on my website, but they are currently discounted to $5. So if you want these tracks for $5, you can head on over to robbyburns.com/store and you can download them using this code at checkout. Thankful. That's right. Just type thankful in all caps. I actually don't know if it has to be all caps, but type thankful at checkout. You'll get $10 off of those scale tracks, making them $5. You can use this on any other product as well. So one of my other products on the website is you can actually download the stems to the GarageBand and Logic projects where I produced these play-along tracks. And you can do all sorts of things with these, like add your own instrument accompaniment, speed it up, slow it down, raise the pitch up an octave or down an octave. You can make yourself the count-off voice instead of my voice. You can change the drum beat. You can do anything you want with these. And these are typically $40, but they are also discounted $10 with that same code. So hopefully this is a cool resource for you. It's not something I've ever talked about on this podcast before, but it's a resource that I'm really proud of. It's my first stab at making something and having an online store. So I hope it's useful to you. Definitely check that out. The discount will continue until November 30th. I'm going to probably, since I'm getting this episode out a little later than I wanted, I'm going to probably extend that. But don't hesitate. Go there now. robbyburns.com/store. Use code THANKFUL on checkout to get $10 off. Now, here's the other thing. You may have noticed that off and on these past couple of episodes, I have had ads. Well, that is because I have been expecting sponsors onto the blog and podcast since the fall. And I wanted to speak to you if you are someone who has a product or a service or an app or any kind of thing that would be relevant to music teachers. Because what I'm doing is I am looking for people who are interested in sponsoring the blog and the podcast. What a sponsorship gets you is for 1 month, your product is referred to on the sidebar of my blog, my podcast website, and the My Favorite Technology part of RobbyBurns.com, which is one of the most popular parts of my site that's not the blog or the podcast. You get a permanently fixed ad on the sidebar of those places for a month. You get a blog post on my blog about your product where you provide copy, and I post that. If you want me to share some of my own experience with your product or service, you can certainly give me an opportunity to do so, and I can add some of my own thoughts. And then, of course, you get an ad read on the podcast as well, which you may have heard if you've been listening for the past couple months. Some great sponsors we've had since I started doing this are Music First and Flat for Education. Be sure to check out their fabulous products. If you are someone who has a product, it doesn't have to be music technology, although that seems to be the wheelhouse of my listeners. But it can be anything. It could be you sell sheet music, you sell music stands, you sell field trip opportunities, you run an organization that like helps bands fundraise. It could be anything, an app, a book, anything that you want to get out there, I'm open to. So reach out to me on the contact page of my website. I'm looking forward to working with lots of people and just spreading the word about all the very, very many great things that are happening in music, technology, and education. So that's that. You can go now, or you can listen to this fine closing from yours truly. I'm Robby Burns. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Tech Talk. You can find the show's page, show notes for this episode, and my blog at musicedtechtalk.com. You can subscribe to blog posts through an RSS app of your choice, and you can subscribe to the podcast in the podcast app of your choice. You can also now get blog posts delivered right into your email inbox once a week in a newsletter. Please rate and review the show in the podcast app of your choice. It absolutely helps, and it'll only take a second and a few taps. Word of mouth is helpful too, so please spread the word about the show. Learn more about my music and teaching career at robbyburns.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud at Robby Burns. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.